Okay, so for this project, we're gonna dive in a little deeper. And a lot of times as designers and things like that, we often become what we call the troubleshooting people. Meaning, like we talked just previously, there might be a paper form out there that needs to become digitized and so on. And a lot of times it's about understanding which form to use when, or which application to use to create what type of form. Acrobat has a lot of wonderful features that are great, and there's a lot of neat ways to spruce up a form just to kind of get it out there. Now, is it the solve all end all? Absolutely not. There's a lot of different types of forms, like maybe Google Forms that might be better, just because it allows some other things like to upload, information, things like that. And then of course you've got the secure forms for like highly sensitive things. So depending on what's all needed, you have to be the person that can kind of help your company figure out what's the best form. Sometimes having a workaround works just fine. So for example, let's say you have a job application that you're just wanting to do kind of basic information, and you're wanting them to upload some information from that. Now, if it's like highly sensitive, like driver's license, things like that, that wouldn't be something. But let's say you want them to be able to upload just a reference list. That would be something that, while Acrobat doesn't have the feature where you can directly upload to them, but you can create a button that allows you to upload to a maybe Google Drive or something of that nature. So there's always workarounds that can happen. It just all depends on how sensitive the information is, and that will depend on what type of upload system that you'll use, right? There's a lot of forms that can be created and that actually store things on a web server, again, but that requires encryption. But let's get back to our project. So one of the things we're going to do is we are going to create a form for a job application. You will download your PDF. Once you do, you'll see that you're given kind of an idea of what you need, right? So it's going to be letter size layout, the same as before. You'll do full name, email address, phone number, date of birth, position they're applying for, yada yada, right? And this may look different depending on the version that this is in, but just remember, use the one that's in your assignment. Don't necessarily go by the one in the video. This is just to kind of show you how to get started. This tells you what type of field it should be, and then also what the field name will be, because that's going to be one of the requirements. Make sure that you are labeling your fields. A lot of these can be labeled as is inside InDesign. The other few things, there might be like, if you're going to do the validation script, or you're going to validate, then you'll have to do that in Acrobat still. The other thing is, make sure that you're looking at, is it required, right? So this is the field name, it's required. This is telling you this one needs a validation script, but it's also required. The name, it's going to be, needs to be formatted, meaning that it's formatted for phone numbers, right? And it is also a required field. Date of birth, formatted and validation. Position, how did you hear about us? This is a drop down. Combo boxes are the same. It's just another name for drop down, but giving you the language for both. That way, when somebody says, hey, I want a combo box or drop box, then you kind of know what it is that they're asking for, right? And you'll be able to create all of these in InDesign as well. And then checkbox, and then you're going to have a button that's going to reference link to a Google Drive, and then a signature field as well, and then an ultimate submit button that is going to submit to an email with a rollover button, or I should say state. So that's kind of what you're going to be working with. So how do you get started on this? Well, good thing is that we do have, from our previous assignment, our form that should still be nice and neat, right? We have our parent page that has our design. Because we're designing for the same company, that's where it's nice, because we can literally just tell it insert page, right? And it's going to create a new page for us. And so then we can put in here that this one is the job application form. So this is where InDesign is nice because you can keep the same information consistent. Maybe to your forms you're going to add a bottom piece. Maybe it's the address of the company, and then you have a web link, and those things. These are all things that we can add as we go on. But before we go too far, what we want to do is we want to save this into our new folder, and we're going to give it a new name, because what we want is to not keep working in our previous folder, right? So if there's any mistakes, we don't necessarily want to carry those over. So we're going to take that into our Project 1 folder, and we are going to rename it Project 1. And I would normally just put your name behind it. That way, if I'm downloading a bunch of stuff, it makes it easier for me to see whose is whose. Now, one thing I'm huge about is don't reinvent the wheel if you don't need to, right? And what do I mean by that? When you're looking at some of this and you're kind of saying, okay, how am I going to set this up, right? So instead of starting brand new and making your little boxes, if you like the boxes and the stuff that you had previously, copy and paste some of that stuff over, right? And some of it we can literally just kind of grab and change as needed, meaning here. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it right in place. Now, I know that I need a name, I need an email address. Now, I do need a phone number and a date of birth, right? So here, what I might do is I might change this to become phone number. And I can still leave today's date, right? And that's not a problem. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to say phone number here. And then this one, I'm just going to change it to DOB, right? Date of birth. And then I can adjust where these position and all of that later on. Now, as I'm going through, I can keep working on different things that I want. So maybe the next part is going to be, what position am I applying for? So then right here, applying for, right? And again, this is just to kind of show you how this is going to look and what we're going to end up doing. Make sure I get the FOR in here. Now, the other thing again is I can grab any of my boxes, right? Which is really nice. So I'm going to grab this box again, and I'm going to click on my second page, and I'm going to paste it. And then I might put that right here. Now, here's going to be the key, right? What we're going to be looking for is I want to make sure that this stays where it is. I'm fine with this being the phone number. When I go and I look at my interactive pieces, right, I want to make sure that I have the correct things labeled. So obviously in InDesign, I'm kind of limited. Like I can't just tell it to be a phone number field or anything like that. But what I can do is I can change this text field to a combo box. When I change it to a combo box, I get to then decide what is it going to be, like what a position am I applying for. And so, and this is where you get to use creative freedom. You know, I'm going to put web development. That is going to be one position, and then graphic design would be a second one, and I'll add a third one. Design. Okay. So these are the positions that they can apply for, and that's because that is now a combo box, right? And so that would be how I added that in there. So that's really the only thing that has changed as far as like a new field, other than a button. Now with buttons, what's kind of neat as you fill in the rest of these, right? And I'm not going to finish this whole entire form, but because you kind of already know the gist of it, but I am going to show you how to create a button with a rollover state, and how we're going to go ahead and create one to be like a regular submit, and then the other one is going to be just a button to upload information, right? So the nice thing about it is you do have the ability to have your rectangle tool, And for some of you guys, you may not have this window open here. And all you have to do is make sure that control is checked. So if it looks like this, go to window and control. I love this control bar because it allows me to do a lot of things there without having to open up extra windows. So let's start off with our regular button, right? So let's say I've talked about some references, right? And so my button I can start with, and again, your button should match everything that you have going on. It should be the same as what you've got. Now there's two ways. A lot of times people forget that you can insert text inside something here. So for example, if I want them to upload references, and I probably totally jacked it up because I can't even see what I'm spelling, but now I'm going to change that. No, I didn't do too bad. I just didn't capitalize it. So here, now what I want to do is I want to make sure as I'm selected here, I also want this to be centered. And then I can come in here and I can adjust and do all kinds of different things. So for example, I can apply an effect to the object. I can work on corner options, right? So I can definitely look at that and adjust the corners on here. I can make this button look any which way that I want to, which is really nice because I have the ability just to kind of style it and make it look really neat, right? And so I can adjust. And again, those are things you can play with and work from there. Now the big key is going to be because this right now is just a basic static element, and there's nothing that's functional to it at the moment. Now, when I come over here to my buttons and forms window, if I go here and I tell it to become an actual button, right? So it's not going to be a radio button, but an actual button, then I get this piece down here. It gives me the normal state and the rollover state. At minimum, we would like to have a rollover state. When you click that rollover state, you can change the look and feel of the state of that button. Meaning if I come in here and I select from normal to rollover, this is what's going to happen, right? And so I can adjust even the text again. I can come in here and say, okay, I want to change the text on here. And so now when I roll over, right, it's going to give me this nice little look. With this also, I can tell it what do I want it to do. So for example, for this one, I would like for it to go to a website, meaning like my Google Drive, and I'd want them to be able to upload into that website, right? So I would have to go and find what my Google Drive is, and then I would copy my link, which I'm going to do. I'm doing this on my other screen. And then I would come over here, right? Make sure I come and go to URL, and I would just paste the URL to my drive here. So that now fixes this button. Same kind of concept. If I wanted to like reuse this button, I can copy, right, and paste it. And then maybe this is going to be my final submit button, right? So obviously I'm going to have to come in here and I'm going to change, so submit my application. That's one. I need to make sure I do the same thing for the regular state. So now I've got both my submit application. Now the only difference with this one is I'm going to remove this action. And from here, I can tell it to submit form. And where am I going to submit it to? I'm going to put in a mail to command. And then this one is where I can tell it to mail it to myself. And then that's all I have to do here. And so now when I'm done with my entire form, I can do it. I would do a save as, right? Remember, we want to do a save as. That way it goes in here and it reduces our file size. We're going to say yes. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to export as an interactive PDF, right? And so I'm going to tell it interactive, make that a capital I, and then I'm going to hit save. Everything should be from what you've had set before, and you're going to click export, and we're going to click OK. So now when we look inside of our correct folder, right, I should have my job application form from previous that I was looking at, my InDesign file, and my interactive. So now when I look at and I double click my interactive, what it does show me is both pages. Now in Acrobat, I can come in here and first of all say I only want the first or the second page, right? So I'm going to delete that page. And mine actually has more than one, but you can kind of see what I created here. So I've got a drop down now on this one. I've got my upload references. So if I click on it, what it actually did is it opened up my Google Drive. And then I'll do it again just so you can see. It opens it here. So I just put it to my student drive that I usually have. If I were to submit my application, it's going to prompt me to submit it using my webmail, and then it would email it to me. So that's another way that you can send a form to a specific email. Now, some of you guys are going, well, why didn't you just do it through Acrobat? If you're designing the form for someone else, maybe they don't have Acrobat installed, so then they can't use the Acrobat feature that way. If they just have Reader, this would be the alternate way to do it for them, right? So I'm going to cancel this for right now, but you can see that everything so far. Now what I will be checking is, can I type in just random stuff, right? This should be phone number validated. What you will need to do is you will need to come over here and remember, tell it to prepare the form, right? And then we're going to go through and we're going to say, okay, our email, properties, right? Make sure that you're going to validate this, and then you're going to put in that custom script that should be from your previous assignment that we're going to put in here. We're going to edit. So that is me making sure that my email works correctly. Now for the date, I am going to change the properties, and I want to format this, and I want it to be a date, right? And so I have to make sure that I set things right. Now, what I did here is I had already put some information in, so I don't want to do that. I was trying to remove it, so let me try that again. So my properties, and then I want to make it a date. Oh, I need to uncheck multi-line. So that was something that I had put in there on accident. And so that is something that I want to change. So the way that I change that is I go to my options and I uncheck, right? Make sure that it doesn't say multi-line and then scrolling long text, things like that, right? So I want to make sure that I have those things to where it lets me do the date. And so the date that I'm going to choose is this. And then I can tell it close. Phone number, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to make sure that I do it for a special thing, which will be a phone number. And I'm going to close that. Date of birth, right? Same thing. I want to make sure that I put it in the way that it's supposed to be. And so again, the date might be the month, the date, the year. I could do it that way. Or I could force them to do it with all of it, right? So depending on the age factor, that's what's going to make a difference on how they're going to fill it out. Same thing if something should just be numbers, right? You might have something where they're going to put just a number in. And you'll make sure that that is going to just have numbers instead of allowing characters to go in. Now, why is that going to make a difference? Because you'll see here. Now, for the date, first of all, it's going to, like if I put 1/25/1985, right, it's going to format my date for me properly. The other thing is if I put a phone number in here, one, it doesn't allow me to put more than the characters, but it does let me, it formats it for me, right? This I'm able to do. If I were to try to submit the application right now, it's going to let me because I don't have anything set as required. So again, I still have to make sure that I go in and then I put in required, right? The email is going to be required. And then click on my required. And then the phone number is going to be required. So again, if I were to preview and I now were to submit it, it's going to tell me that I left some fields empty. And so then now I have to make sure that I fill that in. So if I upload it now, it will work, right? So make sure that you have all of the required pieces in it, that you are formatting it in Acrobat the way that it needs to so that everything functions the way that it should. Make sure that your buttons are working and all of that. The last piece of information will be is when you're creating like a web link. So for example, let's say you're going to add an address that where people can contact, right? So for example, I'm going to do something like down here, I'm going to write on the bottom of my form, so in order for InDesign to pick up an actual link, it has to be written correctly, meaning any email link will have to have an @ symbol. If you're doing a web address, you will need to put that link in. So meaning, or go to HTTPS and then it will pull up that entire web address and make it actually active and clickable once it's turned into an interactive PDF. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the font size here so that way it can go onto the bottom of all of my pages. And you're going to see here, once I go here, it is literally on the bottom, right? And I may have to adjust it based off of my spacing, and boom, I can put that there, right? So now, again, once I save this and I do a save as, and then now I tell it to export as an interactive PDF, right? So I'm going to say interactive. And again, remember, every time you replace it, unfortunately, you're going to have to redo it in Acrobat as well. And that's the only bad part about it. So make sure that when you're ready to export, you are ready to export and not trying to do it 100 times and then redoing the same actions over and over and over. The other thing you can do, instead of deleting, you can tell it which page, right? So you can tell it the range that you want. So range will be just the one. You can tell it, which pages are you going to be working on, and so on. You're going to export, you're going to click OK. And again, now it comes out. Make sure that you're, for the interactive PDF that you are deleting anything that is not for this assignment, so meaning your previous one, you'll leave it inside of InDesign, but you're just going to delete it from the interactive piece. So like this, and then now you can see this link is active and this link isn't active. And the reason why is because we're missing the forward slashes. So in order for it to work, you have to write a web URL correctly. Otherwise it will not work, right? And so like for me, HTTPS, and you just want to make sure that you do it correctly, // and then I'm going to change it to even smaller. There we go. Now it should work. And I'm going to file export, interactive, save, yes, export, okay. And then now I should be able to go here. Oh, it did not export interactive at all. What is going on? So it did not, I must have hit something wrong. Let me try that again. File, export, interactive. Let me make sure that I got that. Yeah, that's closed. Yes, I want to replace it. And make sure I didn't uncheck anything. Include all. Export. Oh, now all of a sudden my link stopped being. Oh, there you go. I was going faster than it was reacting. So here we go. So now you can see that both of them are active and are ready to go. And so that's what you're going to be working on this assignment. Make sure that you're reading your assignment specs and that you're really making sure that you include everything. You definitely should have a title, kind of like this one. So it would be job application form. All of that is what you're going to be creating for this final project. And then make sure that you're also including any other requirements. So if it has like a reflection piece, make sure that you also include that as well.